Rain. Autumn, 1997, somewhere on the outskirts of Eastern Europe. Under a lonely street lamp sits an old, second-generation Volkswagen Golf. Its paint lost its shine years ago. Rust has already claimed the wheel arches. The doors still carry the scars of countless winters. Beneath the floor mats lies sand that found its way inside years ago and never left. You turn the key. 1.5 liters of German steel shudder to life. The starter turns once, then twice. The engine wakes up. No drama, no aggressive exhaust note, no pops, no flames. It simply starts, smoothly, quietly, just as it did yesterday, just as it did 10 years ago, and just as it will 20 years from now. A brand new sedan pulls up beside you at the traffic light. Leather seats, climate control, ABS, airbags, electronics everywhere. Its driver glances over with a faint smile. To him, you're just an old German beater, another car for retirees. What he doesn't realize is that every modern car around him looks the way it does because of you. He thinks you're just another Volkswagen, but he has no idea that only a few years before you were born, Volkswagen itself was on the brink of disappearing. The company that today owns Audi, Porsche, Skoda, Seat, Bentley, Lamborghini, Bugatti, and dozens of other legendary brands barely had a future. It was a company slowly dying, a company trapped in its past. A company that had spent 25 years building the same car and had almost forgotten how to create something new. You were never supposed to exist. Your existence is the result of one of the boldest gambles in automotive history. And if just one man had made the wrong decision, you would never have been born. But to understand why millions of people now call you a legend, we have to go back to where it all began. 1965. Germany is in the middle of its economic miracle. The country is growing richer by the day. Factories run around the clock. More cars fill the roads every year. Every year brings new technology. Every month, competitors unveil something more modern. Every day, the world moves forward. Except for one company. Volkswagen seems frozen in time. From the outside, everything looks perfect. Money is pouring in. The factories are busy. Sales are soaring. Newspapers call Volkswagen the pride of Germany's economic miracle. But behind closed doors, panic is spreading. Because all of that success depends on a single car, the Beetle, a car that was designed before World War II. While the rest of the world is switching to front-wheel drive, Volkswagen keeps building rear-engined cars. While everyone else moves the engine to the front, Volkswagen keeps it in the back. While competitors adopt water-cooled engines, Volkswagen refuses to abandon air cooling. Even heating the cabin in winter becomes a challenge. Across Europe, a new generation of family cars arrives. Fiat introduces modern front-wheel drive models. Opel keeps reinventing the Kadett. Renault experiments with bold new engineering concepts. Even the Soviet Union launches the Vaz, based on the Fiat 124. Even the humble Volga begins to outclass the aging Beetle in many areas of engineering. And Volkswagen is still betting its future on a car conceived a quarter of a century earlier. This is no longer conservatism, it's desperation. The company realizes something terrifying. It has forgotten how to build a truly new car. Engineers argue among themselves. Executives have no idea which direction to take. Some insist on keeping the rear-engine philosophy alive. Others demand a complete redesign from the ground up. Some can't even agree on what the next Volkswagen should be. Worst of all, no one has the answer. A financial gamble begins. Over the next few years, Volkswagen pours billions of Deutschmarks into countless new projects. Billions are spent developing cars that never reach full production. Every project is supposed to replace the Beetle, and every single one fails. Some are too expensive, some are simply too strange. Others are already outdated before they even launch. Some disappear almost as soon as they arrive. Others never make it past the prototype stage. The money keeps disappearing, and the future remains uncertain. Eventually, Volkswagen's leadership realizes that if this continues for just a few more years, Volkswagen itself may cease to exist. That's when an idea is born, one that will reshape the entire automotive industry. If we can no longer build the best cars, then we'll buy the people who can. And so begins one of the most extraordinary acquisition campaigns in German automotive history. Volkswagen starts buying everything that might help it survive. Engineers, factories, technology, entire companies, even nearly finished car projects. One of its first major acquisitions is Auto Union, the company that would later become Audi. The irony is almost unbelievable. Audi's engineers already know how to build modern engines, modern suspensions, modern automobiles, while Volkswagen itself doesn't. It creates a bizarre situation. The subsidiary knows how to build better cars than its own parent company, and the madness is only just beginning. 1967. You don't even exist yet. You have no name, no body, no engine, not even the first blueprint. But right now, your fate is being decided. Because Volkswagen can no longer survive by living in the past. The Beetle is still making enormous profits. The factories never stop. Thousands of cars roll off the assembly lines every single day. From the outside, it looks like the fastest growing company in Europe. But inside the boardroom, the atmosphere is completely different. They've realized something terrifying. Every Beetle they sell only makes the company weaker, because every million they earn is immediately poured into the search for the car of the future. And every time, the money disappears, with nothing to show for it. The engineers keep designing new rear-engine cars, air cooling once again, the engine in the back once again, ideas from 20 years ago once again. It's as if they're trying to defeat the future with the weapons of the past. But the market has already made its choice. People want completely different cars, more spacious, quieter, more fuel efficient, safer, front-wheel drive, a proper heater, an engine in the front. Volkswagen stubbornly pretends none of this is happening. Another year passes, a few more failed projects. Tens of millions of Deutschmarks disappear into engineering offices. The executives keep asking the same question. What comes after the Beetle? There is no answer. Nobody knows. That's when Volkswagen makes a decision that only a few years earlier would have been seen as an admission of defeat. If we can no longer build the best cars ourselves, then we'll buy the people who can. A different kind of hunt begins. Not for cars, for knowledge. Volkswagen starts acquiring companies one after another. Its first major prize is Auto Union. Years later, the world will know it by a different name, Audi. On paper, it's just another business deal, but in reality, it's a remarkable paradox. The company Volkswagen has just acquired is already more advanced than Volkswagen itself. While executives in Wolfsburg are still arguing over whether front-wheel drive is the future, Audi's engineers are already building modern automobiles. They have new engines, new suspensions, modern transmissions, experience, technology, everything Volkswagen has been missing. It creates a strange picture. An automotive giant buys another company simply to learn how to build cars again. But even that isn't enough. Soon afterward, Volkswagen acquires another manufacturer, NSU. Once regarded as one of Germany's most innovative car companies, a company unafraid to experiment. Unconventional engines, radical engineering, new technologies. Not every experiment succeeds, far from it. But that's no longer the point. Volkswagen isn't buying finished cars, it's buying ideas. Any ideas, because it has almost none left of its own. At the same time, another search begins. Not for a company, for a man. Someone capable of designing a car that doesn't even exist yet. Germany has no answer, so Volkswagen looks south, to Italy, to a young designer whose work is beginning to attract attention across Europe. His name, Giorgetto Giugiaro. One day, he'll design the car that changes Volkswagen forever. But for now, the company's executives aren't even sure his ideas are usable. The situation becomes almost unbelievable. The The engines come from Audi, some of the technology comes from NSU, the styling comes from Italy, the engineering philosophy comes from studying competitors. So what is actually left of Volkswagen? Very little. The company that once built the people's car is now assembling its own future, piece by piece, from everyone else's ideas. But even that isn't enough, because the engineers discover one more problem. You can buy technology, you can buy factories, you can hire the brightest engineers, but you can't buy experience. No one inside Volkswagen has ever built a car like this before, so they do something almost unimaginable. They buy their competitors' cars and tear them apart down to the very last bolt. Fiat, Renault, Opel, every component, every control arm, every gearbox, every suspension, every engine. They aren't stealing ideas, they're trying to understand why everyone else's cars are better than their own. One car in particular captures their attention, the Fiat 128. Front-wheel drive, a transverse engine, compact, efficient, remarkably well-balanced. Everything Volkswagen has never built before. For hours, the engineers study every detail. They photograph, they measure, they sketch, they argue. Then they take it apart again. Slowly, they come to a difficult realization. The future has already been invented. Now they have to learn how to build it just as well. Around the same time, Giugiaro delivers the first sketches of the new car. Sharp lines, flat surfaces, a completely different silhouette. Nothing like the rounded Beetle. No compromises. The car looks as if it has arrived from the future, but Volkswagen's executives study the drawings and panic. It's too radical. People will never accept it. It has to be redesigned. Giugiaro quietly returns to Italy, and the German engineers begin improving his design. They change the angle of the windshield, reshape the rear, reduce the size of the taillights, simplify several details, trying to make the car feel more German. History would soon play a cruel joke on them. Just a few years later, most of those changes would be reversed. The windshield returns almost to Giugiaro's original angle. The taillights grow larger again. The result is almost ironic. First, the engineers work tirelessly to fix the Italian design. Then they work just as hard to put it back the way it was. But at that moment, no one realizes that lying on those drawing boards is the silhouette of a future legend. By the beginning of the 1970s, Volkswagen finally has everything it needs. Modern engines, modern suspension, Italian styling, Audi's engineering expertise, technology from the companies it acquired, billions of Deutschmarks invested. Only one thing remains, the hardest part of all. To build a car that has never existed before. A car that must save an entire company. And that is the moment when a project is born that still doesn't have the name Golf. 1970. For the first time in years, the offices of Volkswagen fall silent. The arguments are over. Every idea has been debated. Every option has been explored. Most of the money is already gone. There is no way back now. If the next car fails, the company may never recover. A thick folder lands on the executive's table. On the cover, just a few characters. EA 276. Later, the project will receive the internal designation A1. But for now, it's nothing more than a stack of blueprints. No name, no history. No guarantee that anyone will ever want to buy it. You're not a Golf yet. You're not even truly a Volkswagen. You're a collection of borrowed ideas. A suspension made possible by Audi. A layout inspired by Fiat. A design created by the Italian master Giorgetto Giugiaro. Even the philosophy behind the car wasn't born inside Volkswagen. It was born from fear. The fear of disappearing. The engineers work almost without stopping. Every day brings new drawings. Every week, something changes. The engine is redesigned. The suspension is redesigned. The interior is redesigned. Even the engine layout sparks endless debates. Should it be mounted transversely or longitudinally? Ahead of the gearbox? Behind it? How do you build a car that handles predictably in every situation? Today, the answer seems obvious. Back then, no one knew. The engineers literally draw layouts on the workshop floor with chalk. They place gearboxes, engines, drive shafts, moving everything around again and again. The discussions continue late into the night. One drive shaft ends up longer than the other. One engineer says, "That'll never work." Another replies, "It should." A third wants to start over from scratch. No one knows whether they're creating the future or another expensive failure. Meanwhile, Giugiaro finishes the final design. His task is nearly impossible. Create a car that won't look modern for 5 years, or even 10. Create one that won't feel outdated for decades. He draws clean, straight lines, large windows, a practical hatchback body, a tall roof, short overhangs, nothing unnecessary. Every line serves one purpose: maximum space, minimum size. Years later, millions of designers will draw inspiration from this silhouette, but nobody knows that yet. Volkswagen's management starts doubting the project again. It's too boxy, too simple. Where's the luxury? Where's the chrome? Where are the flowing curves? Giugiaro says nothing. He already understands. He isn't designing a beautiful toy. He's designing a tool. A car people won't buy with their eyes, but with common sense. Then another serious problem appears: the name. No one can sell a car called EA276. It's just numbers. It needs a real name. And that's when one of Volkswagen's strangest stories begins. Originally, this new model wasn't supposed to be called Golf at all. It was supposed to be called Scirocco. Yes, that Scirocco. At first, that name was reserved for what would eventually become the Golf. But around the same time, another idea emerges inside Volkswagen. A small, sporty coupe. Lower, more emotional, more exciting. It needs a design too. Giugiaro is ready. The platform is nearly finished. The engines already exist. Then, coach builder Carmen makes Volkswagen an incredible offer. "We'll build the car ourselves. We'll take on the production costs. We only need your engineering." Volkswagen doesn't hesitate for long. If someone is willing to build a car almost at their own expense, why say no? And that's how the Scirocco is born. But the most surprising part comes next. Volkswagen launches the sporty coupe before the hatchback the entire platform was originally created for. It's an unbelievable situation. The company's most important new car doesn't exist yet, but its sporty sibling is already driving on public roads. Why? The answer is simple. Volkswagen is terrified. If the new platform has serious flaws, they want to discover them before the main model reaches customers. The Scirocco becomes one enormous test program. Every journalist, every customer, every mechanic, every owner complaint. All of it becomes free engineering feedback. Every mistake is collected, analyzed, fixed, and only then does Volkswagen give the green light to the car that can no longer be called Scirocco. The name is already taken. A new one has to be found. And that's how the name Golf is born. Not because it was planned from the beginning, not because the marketing department found the perfect word, but because the original name already belonged to another car. Sometimes, history changes because of a single available word, but an even greater challenge is about to arrive. October 1973. Several Middle Eastern countries drastically cut oil exports. The world begins to suffocate. Fuel prices skyrocket. Long lines appear at gas stations. In many countries, gasoline becomes scarce. Germany introduces driving restrictions. On Sundays, the autobahns fall silent. People become afraid of buying large cars. Every liter of fuel matters. Every mile suddenly has a price. And at exactly that moment, Volkswagen makes one of its most ironic mistakes. The company launches a sporty version of the Beetle. While the world is desperately trying to save fuel, Volkswagen is telling people to drive faster. The reaction is immediate. Newspapers ridicule the company. Politicians openly criticize Volkswagen's leadership. Inside the company, panic returns. It feels like one more mistake could end everything. Then, history takes an unexpected turn. While Volkswagen's competitors continue building heavy, thirsty cars, inside one of Volkswagen's factories, a completely different car is almost ready. Compact, lightweight, fuel-efficient, front-wheel drive with a surprisingly spacious interior. Exactly the kind of car the world suddenly needs. What looked like an enormous risk yesterday becomes the perfect solution overnight. Sometimes history rewards not the smartest, but the most stubborn. Late 1973, the first Golf rolls off the assembly line. The workers simply watch. No applause, no celebration, no grand speeches. Just another small hatchback. No one realizes that at this very moment, a car has been born that will save Volkswagen and create an entirely new class of automobiles. But the most important chapter hasn't even begun. Because only a few months later, an ordinary Volkswagen engineer named Alfons Lohenberg will get behind the wheel of that little hatchback and see something no one else inside the company could see. He will give the world the Golf GTI and forever change the meaning of the affordable sports car. 1972. You're almost ready. Your first pre-production prototypes are already running on the test tracks. The engineers inspect the brakes, the suspension, the engine, every bolt, every weld, every sound. To Volkswagen's management, you're just another project. Very expensive, very risky, and possibly the last one. No one expects a miracle. You only need to sell, nothing more. Around that same time, a new test engineer joins Volkswagen. His name is Alfons Lohenberg. Before Volkswagen, he worked at Opel, testing cars, competing in motorsport. He didn't understand cars through blueprints. He understood them through feel. He didn't stare at numbers. He listened to the car. Late one evening, he's handed one of the first prototypes. No badges, no advertising, no name. Just an ordinary gray hatchback. He pulls onto an empty road, accelerates. First gear, second, third. The car slices through a corner, then another, even faster, even harder. He stops, gets out, stands there in silence for several long seconds, then climbs back in and does it all again. Most engineers tested the car. Alfons searched for its limits. He attacked corners faster than anyone should, lifted off the throttle abruptly, provoked oversteer, braked at the very last moment. He tried to make the car fail, but something strange happened. The harder he pushed, the better it became. Years later, he remembered one small detail. The front suspension had a negative scrub radius. To an ordinary driver, those words meant nothing, but to an engineer, they meant everything. He realized something instantly. If the chassis could handle wider tires, it could handle more power. And if it could handle more power, it deserved a stronger engine. At that exact moment, an idea is born. A crazy idea, an unnecessary idea, a dangerous idea. A sporting Golf, not a sports coupe, not an expensive Grand Tourer, not a Porsche, not a Mercedes. An ordinary family hatchback capable of humiliating sports cars. Today, that sounds perfectly normal. Back then, it simply didn't exist. The next morning, Alfons prepares a detailed report. Dozens of pages, graphs, test results, calculations. He places the documents on the executive's desk. Several managers read through them carefully. Then one of them looks up. "You're proposing a performance version of the economy family hatchback we've spent years developing?" "Yes." Silence. Then the answer. "No." The reason is painfully simple. It's 1973, the oil crisis. Fuel prices are climbing every day. Politicians are demanding fuel economy. Only months earlier, Volkswagen had been heavily criticized for launching a sporty Beetle. The company barely survived the backlash, and now one engineer wants another performance car. The proposal isn't even discussed, it's rejected immediately, but Alphonse refuses to give up. He understands one thing: if he waits for official approval, nothing will ever happen. So he does something that today would almost certainly get him fired. He starts building the GTI in secret. First, he finds people, not executives, not directors, engineers just as stubborn as he is, a few mechanics, a few test drivers, a few designers. Later, Anton Conrad joins them, the man who can quietly protect the project from above. Together, they become a tiny underground team, just a handful of people against one of the world's biggest car companies. But another problem appears. Where can they actually work? Not at the factory. Management would notice. The official prototypes are off limits. Then someone remembers. Carmen, the company already building the Scirocco. Almost the same platform, almost the same mechanical components, nearly identical underneath. So that's where they begin their work. By day, they're ordinary Volkswagen engineers, filling out paperwork, attending meetings, testing production cars. But in the evening, they drive somewhere else. Alphonse's house, a small garage, a wooden table, stacks of blueprints, beer, hot sausages, and endless conversations. Years later, Anton Conrad would write a single sentence. Every discussion about the project took place at Lowenberg's house over sausages and beer. That's where the legend is born, not inside a glamorous research center, not in a glass office tower, but inside an ordinary garage. The first decision seems obvious. The 1.5-liter, 60-horsepower engine isn't enough, so it has to go. The engineers find an Audi engine, 85 horsepower. Today, that sounds almost laughable. Back then, it was nearly 50% more power. The car comes alive instantly. But a new problem appears. The brakes. They aren't strong enough. So they upgrade the brakes, then the suspension, then the gearbox, a 5-speed transmission, ventilated disc brakes, an oil cooler, sport seats. Every improvement creates another problem. Every problem demands another solution. Night after night, Alphonse returns to the Autobahn. The roads are almost empty. He pushes the prototype to its limit, listens to the engine, watches the oil temperature, comes back, changes something, then heads out again. This continues for months. No one realizes that right now, in complete secrecy, a car is being born that will change the automotive world forever. Because this is no longer just a Golf. It's the first car to prove one simple truth. You don't need an expensive sports car to experience the joy of driving. Sometimes all you need is a small German hatchback. But one final test still remains, the hardest of them all. They have to show the car to the executives, the very same people who had already said no. And that single presentation will decide whether the GTI becomes a legend or remains forever a secret garage project built by a handful of stubborn engineers. 1975. The secret project has now been running for months, at night, without official funding, without management's approval. A handful of engineers gather once again at Alphonse's house. Blueprints, mugs of beer, cold sausages, greasy hands. Arguments that last deep into the night. This stopped being just a job a long time ago. Now, it's personal. Everyone understands, if management says no again, this story ends right here. By now, the car is nothing like an ordinary Golf. Under the hood sits a 110 horsepower engine, equipped with Bosch K-Jetronic mechanical fuel injection. Today, that number doesn't sound impressive, but back then, for a compact family hatchback, it was explosive. The car weighs less than 900 kilograms. It accelerates faster than many expensive sports coupes. And most importantly, it's still an ordinary Golf. It can still carry a family, luggage, groceries. You can drive it to work every day. Then, on the way home, leave cars costing 3 times as much in your mirrors. The day of the presentation arrives. Several Volkswagen executives step onto the test track. Waiting for them is a small 3-door hatchback. No giant rear wing, no wide body kit, no aggressive styling. Almost an ordinary Golf. Just a little lower, a little wider, and with a thin red stripe around the front grille. One of the executives gets behind the wheel, closes the door, starts the engine. A few minutes later, the car returns. The man steps out. The very same man who only months earlier had said no. Silently, he walks over to the engineers, looks at the car, then says just one sentence: "Put it into production." But even now, management doesn't believe it will succeed. They see the GTI as a niche toy. The production target almost sounds like a joke. 5,000 cars. Just 5,000. That's it. It was supposed to be a limited edition, a small experiment, a special gesture for enthusiasts. No one could have imagined what would happen next. The first cars are handed to journalists. Within days, the reviews begin to appear, and almost every one of them ends the same way. "We don't understand how this is possible. It drives like a sports coupe, but it costs about the same as an ordinary family car. This is an entirely new kind of automobile." Buyers begin lining up. Dealers demand more cars. Factories add extra shifts. 5,000 becomes 10,000. 10,000 becomes 50. Then, hundreds of thousands. Volkswagen suddenly realizes they have created something that never existed before. Before the GTI, the rules were simple. If you wanted speed, you bought a Porsche. If you wanted practicality, you bought a family car. Having both was impossible. The GTI destroyed that rule. Now, one car could be everything. A family car, economical, practical, and at the same time, genuinely fast. That's how an entirely new class of automobile is born. Later, journalists would give it a name: hot hatch. Today, the term sounds perfectly normal, but back then, no one even imagined that such a class of car could exist. Competitors begin to panic. Opel rushes to build the Kadett GT/E. Ford answers with the Escort RS. Peugeot starts developing the future 205 GTI. Renault begins work on its own performance hatchbacks. Almost all of Europe suddenly starts building cars that didn't even exist the year before. Everyone is chasing one car, a small German Golf. But the greatest victory doesn't happen on a racetrack or inside a showroom. It happens in Volkswagen's accounting department. Not long before, the company feared bankruptcy, living off the Beetle, buying technology from others without knowing what its future should be. Now, everything changes. Golf sales grow every month. Profits are measured in billions again. Factories run around the clock. For the first time in years, confidence returns. Volkswagen is no longer chasing the market. Now, the market is chasing Volkswagen. Several years pass. The first-generation Golf becomes a symbol of Europe. But the engineers already know the next car will be an even greater challenge. Because now, building a good car is no longer enough. Now, they have to surpass a legend. And that's almost impossible. The late 1970s. The designers gather around their drawing boards once again. A blank sheet of paper lies before them. For now, it's empty. But right here, the story begins of a car that will survive tens of millions of kilometers, become a mechanic's favorite, a neighborhood icon, a symbol of the 1990s, and a machine that people will still be restoring in garages around the world 40 years later. A car many will call the greatest Volkswagen ever built. U, the second generation Golf.